Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Salina Planning Commission meeting for September 1st, 2020. First order of business, we'll do roll call.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, all appointed members are here and in attendance. We pointed out earlier that the commission currently has 7 appointed members, and the 2 vacant positions are individuals who must live outside of but within 3 miles of the city limits. So we're looking for candidates who live in that area who might be willing to serve, but we have full attendance for our appointed members. And we can confirm that we have met the requirements for the Open Meetings Act by posting today's agenda.
Outstanding. Thank you. On to the approval of minutes. Let's start with the minutes for June 23rd, the 2020 special meeting.
All motion to approve.
So moved.
It's been motioned and seconded. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, approval of minutes for August 4th, 2020 regular meeting.
I'll move to approve those as well.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? On to new business.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You may well be wondering why this item is back on your agenda after seeing it first on August 4th. Probably the main thing that has occurred since August 4th is that a project that was not publicly announced on August 4th has been publicly announced since that time, so it gives you a little different perspective in terms of looking at this application. But the reason it has come back to you is to consider 2 questions. One, when you acted on August 4th, you required that the configuration of Jumper Road extending west of Arnold Avenue be either retained as is, or that Jumper Road be converted to a private shared access easement in cooperation with UniFirst, and UniFirst is the adjoining property to the north. So John, if you could, can you zoom in on this at all? And look over at Jumper Road. So this is Jumper Road right here, and what the Planning Commission said was that the proposal was to basically end the public street right here for a driveway access here and maintaining this driveway access there, and to eliminate all this. Well, the elimination, you can see that it's a dead-end street that presently ends in a cul-de-sac, and we pointed out to the commission that the plan before you did not show a relocated cul-de-sac here, so staff didn't feel like the Planning Commission could act on that configuration. If it was eliminated as a public street, then the requirement for a cul-de-sac turnaround would have been eliminated. So if you could zoom out a little bit, John, and show a bigger area, you can see, looking around, that this is Jumper Road up against the airport. This is Schilling Road with a cul-de-sac. This is Scanlon that presently ends in a cul-de-sac. If you could go a little farther south, John, to Bailey Court. Keep going south. So this is a dead-end street. It terminates in a cul-de-sac. If you look at all the public streets in the Airport Industrial Center area, they all terminate in a cul-de-sac, and because there wasn't a plan for that, staff did not feel like the Planning Commission could approve anything for Jumper Road that didn't involve the creation of a cul-de-sac turnaround. So we met with the applicants after the Planning Commission meeting, and they If you could go to the plat layout, please, John, and zoom in on that. So that we can see what's happening over at Jumper Road. So that, you need to scroll over a little bit so we can see this right in here. So this was the plat layout. This was presented to the Planning Commission at your August 4th meeting. And because this cul-de-sac was eliminated and not replaced, staff felt like the only thing the Planning Commission could do would be approve it subject to the condition that this remain as is, or they could turn this, eliminate it as a public street entirely and just make it private, in which case a cul-de-sac turnaround would not be required. So this has been brought back with the applicant asking for the Planning Commission to reconsider your condition of approval at the August 4th meeting, and also requesting a variation from the requirement in the subdivision regulations that all dead-end public streets terminate with a cul-de-sac turnaround. And so this, from the applicant's perspective, this is the plan that they wish to pursue. At your places, was not present at the time of your packet, but at your places you should find a letter that looks like this. That's from UniFirst Corporation. That was lacking at the August 4th meeting, but that is a letter from UniFirst Corporation that says that they are in agreement with the vacation and elimination of this eastern portion of Jumper Road. John, there's a couple drawings in there that have highlighting on them about the reversion of right-of-way for Jumper Road. Okay, so this is a blow-up of the project site plan. And if you can get it where we can see over at where it intersects with Arnold. Okay, so this is Arnold Avenue here. This is Jumper Road. The proposal that is before you is to retain this part of Jumper Road from here to essentially here, which is to get it to where the driveway is for UniFirst, to retain that as a public street, but to not have that terminate in a cul-de-sac. And so their suggestion is an alternative to that is that the emergency vehicles or trash trucks or others could come in and use this as a means to get back out. The other important things about this drawing that we wanted to show you is that this line right here is the south right-of-way line for existing Jumper Road. As you can see, this employee entrance building is located partially into where that current right-of-way is. The other thing we wanted to show you, and it relates back to the letter from UniFirst, but we tried to explain maybe not very well the first time, was that when a street gets closed and vacated like this, it goes back half and half. So the south half goes to the owner of these lots, the north half goes to the owners of these lots. So you cannot vacate and give right-of-way back to an owner unless they're willing to accept it. And so the letter that you have at your places there from UniFirst says they are willing to see the street shortened and closed, and they're willing to accept back the vacated right-of-way. There very well could be a side agreement between UniFirst and SFC Global to transfer the ownership of this to SFC Global, but that, by law, this automatically goes to UniFirst and not to the applicants on the plat. So the two things that are important about this letter is, one, UniFirst agrees to be a party to the plat, because we're including this in there. And the second thing is that they are in agreement with the vacation of Jumper Road east of their driveway. So when you acted on the 4th of August, you approved the plat, and you approved it subject to 4 conditions. And the first condition was that either the applicant leave Jumper Road just as it was, or they convert it to a private driveway, because that would eliminate the requirement for a cul-de-sac. Their request was to place this back on your agenda and to have you reconsider your condition number 1. And so, because UniFirst was not a co-applicant on the plat, and we didn't have the consent in writing, we recommended that Jumper Road be left in its current configuration. And we felt that those were the only 2 legal options that the Planning Commission had. We now have a request from the applicant for the Planning Commission to consider a variation from the requirement that all public streets that are dead end terminate in a cul-de-sac. So, as we explained, if the replat is approved as proposed, that yellow highlighted area is going to revert back to UniFirst and not to SFC Global Supply Chain. So it can't be included as part of their campus unless UniFirst agrees to transfer of ownership, and they have agreed to do so and to be a part of the plat. So with those things being they're secured and in place, this allows the replat to go forward to the City Commission with that configuration. What it doesn't address is the question of should Jumper Road terminate in a cul-de-sac. So the main reason we recommended that it be left as it is because the plat, as was before the Planning Commission, didn't have a cul-de-sac in it, and there had been no request for a variation. But you can see on page 4, the subdivision regulations state that a dead-end street shall be designed as a cul-de-sac street and shall consist of a 50-foot right-of-way leading from a street terminated by a circular turnaround. And so, as we pointed out, there's a number of dead-end streets in the Airport Industrial Center. They all terminate in a circular turnaround. The purpose of the turnaround is to allow emergency vehicles and trash trucks and other vehicles entering a dead-end street to be able to turn around without backing back out of the dead-end street. So that goes to a point, again, on the length of dead-end streets, but you could envision a situation you don't want to have emergency vehicles or fire trucks are coming to a street and then giving them no choice but to back out of the area to get to another location. So that's the reason for the turnaround. The other reason is because it is a public street, there's a policy of trying to make all the circulation be on public right-of-way and not force private property owners to take to provide turnarounds for public traffic. So this is back to address the question of whether a variation should be granted from the requirement that dead-end streets terminate in a circular turnaround. And so what they're proposing again is the street terminate here, the right-of-way portion, and that the road just feed into the parking lot. And so you do have the authority to grant variations from the subdivision regulations if you find that particular hardships or practical difficulties would result from strict compliance with the subdivision regulation. And so the factors that you're to consider are on page 5 of your report, and in working with the applicant, they've provided their justifications or possible findings in support of the variation request. The SFC Global Supply Chain thinks that it will not be detrimental to the public safety, health, or welfare in the neighborhood in which the property is located because Jumper Road will be a short street. It's only 220 feet long, will only be used by traffic accessing UniFirst or the Tony's employee parking lot. And they indicate that emergency vehicles can turn around in their parking entrance. They also state that these conditions are unique and are not found on other property because as a food processing plant, Tony's Pizza has unique operational requirements that necessitate construction of a separate employee entrance building separated from the main plant. So as you look at this, this is the proposed new plant building. This is an employee entrance area with employees parking in this lot, going through the entrance building and then down a corridor into the building. And if you had to build a turnaround right here, it would affect this layout and also get into the proposed location of the employee building. In terms of physical surroundings and shape and topographical condition, strict application of the public street turnaround requirement would require the relocation or redesign of the employee entrance building. And they indicate that they are working with city staff on other traffic improvements to address the additional traffic generated by the plant expansion. No other variations are being proposed or requested as part of this application. So as you look at this, one of the unique physical conditions that's influencing this request is the configuration and location of the proposed employee entrance building. They're proposing to construct a building as depicted there. It's 75 feet by 100 feet. It's located about 250 feet away from the main plant, and it's located where a cul-de-sac turnaround would normally or need to be built. We do believe Jumper Road will be heavily used, but primarily by Tony's employees entering and leaving the parking lot and not by the general public. The primary purpose of having a circular turnaround is to allow emergency vehicles and trash trucks to turn around and exit without having to back out or to drive onto private property. And so the global supply chain thinks if they design the way they've done their parking lot entrance, it could be used for a vehicular turnaround, and it could potentially serve as an adequate substitute for a cul-de-sac turnaround. So you would have the option of approving that design variation if you find that the variation is justified by the physical space limitations and unique operational needs of the plant expansion, or you could decline to approve the variation recommended and recommend that Jumper Road be converted from a public street to a private access drive. So I don't know if we are able to get to the aerial photos to look at these locations, but I would ask you to mentally think about 3 locations or examples of something similar where a public street was turned into private space. So if you look at the place where Claflin Avenue terminates at Ohio Street, there's a road that leads opposite Claflin. It leads into the Dillon's store complex. That is not a public street. It's a shared private drive, and it's owned half by the property owner to the north and half by the property owner to the south. There's a road where Belmont Boulevard runs into Planet Avenue by Spangles and Burger King. And if you drive west from there, that is not a public street. It's owned partially by what used to be Aldi's and now is a furniture store and the Goodwill property. And so that is a shared private drive. And then there's a property used to be known as wheel place. It came off of 8th Street and went west of 8th Street to 7th Street, and that is no longer a public street. It's a private drive that's owned by the Salina Regional Health Center, and that was significant because it used to have a cul-de-sac on it, and now it doesn't because it just feeds into the parking lot for the hospital, but it doesn't need to have a terminus on it because it's no longer a public street. So one of the options here, and it may not address the fire department concerns, is that if this was not a public street at all and was simply a private driveway that was shared by UniFirst and SFC Global, then we wouldn't be applying the subdivision regulations. It wouldn't be a public street that's terminating. It would just be a driveway coming off of Arnold. But the applicant was pretty clear with staff that they wanted this part of Jumper Road to be retained as a public street, but didn't have room for the circular turnaround. So there's 3 potential action items for you to act on this afternoon. One is to consider the applicant's request for the variation, which would require the construction of a circular turnaround. And you could either approve that design variation or you could deny the requested variation. If you approve it, well, if you approve it, then they can move forward with this configuration. If you approve alternate 2 and deny it, then their only choice would be to retain Jumper Road as it is or vacate it entirely and convert it into a private drive, in which case there wouldn't need to be a variation for a turnaround because it wouldn't be a public street. The second action item would be to see if you wanted to rescind your condition of plat approval that only gave them 2 options to make it a private drive or to retain the street as it is. And the third action item would be to reaffirm your approval of the plat with whatever conditions you want to have. At this point, with this drawing up, we do have Troy Long here from the fire department, and we just want to get the fire department's thoughts about the purpose for the turnaround, the lack of turnaround, and we think one of the important aspects of this is the assertion by the applicants that whether the parking lot entrance that they've designed would be an adequate substitute for a turnaround. So I might ask Mr. Long to come to the podium and just kind of look at this drawing and address the perspective of the fire department on this particular design and how they would anticipate using it.
All right, I've got, if you guys want to take a copy of each of those, I don't know if there's enough for everyone. That is directly out of the code book, so if you guys want to read it, you're welcome to do that. I would tell you that parking lots generally don't work very well for fire apparatus that are 30 feet or longer. We just purchased a new Quint. It was approved by the City Commission that we'll take delivery of December of next year. That Quint happens to be 37 foot 10 inches, which is 38 feet. I don't know if any of you guys drive like a crew cab pickup or anything with extended cab, long bed, pull into a parking lot and try to get turned around. That's not the way emergency traffic is intended to work. That's why the code is written the way that it is that if we have a dead end that's more than 150 feet, we don't want to be backing out of that because that's where accidents and injuries happen. And so therefore we would prefer to see either some sort of turnaround or provide a secondary, or an exit, I guess, out of this parking lot as well as the entrance. That would be our recommendation.
So, John, can you scroll up to see, I guess it gets cut off there. There is, did it get the, you do have a site plan in your packets. I don't know. It's a question whether we can get that on the screen or not.
I think there's enough there for you guys to each have one. That is the site plan. It does show the entire site, because we had a question about the east side as well. The east side goes all the way into almost the north end of the building. Did you get that, John?
So do these turnarounds need to be paved, or would gravel suffice?
They need to withstand 75,000 pounds and be maintained in good order at all times. I will tell you, if you aren't aware of it, I didn't pull the exact numbers, but just an estimation, we respond for EMS to Tony's on average about 5 times a month currently. I don't know if that would, if this new facility would change that or not, but you are talking about an ambulance that's significantly smaller. But a lot of times, the truck that's assigned to Station 3 is the Quint that is in that 37-foot range. And so every time we come to this facility, if we go to that west side, we're going to have to back out because we can't go through the parking lot.
Is the entrance to the Schwann's employee parking lot and to the First, what is it, First Corporation? UniFirst, do they line up? It's hard to see that.
They don't exactly line up. If you want to scroll back to the drawing you were just at, John. So it's faint, but this is the entrance into UniFirst right here. And this is the proposed entrance into the employee parking lot. So that, they don't exactly line up. And again, just for your benefit, this is a series of pipelines, and this is associated with their drainage system. But if you go, could you go back to the other drawing, please, John? The top drawing, the full site plan. So what I think I understand you saying, Troy, is that this is an entrance in, there's a parking lot. If there was a circulation back to get back out to Arnold, that there wouldn't be a necessity to turn around or back out, that this circulation pattern could be used, and then it wouldn't be the dead end situation of being forced to potentially back out.
But then also, if the entrance to the UniFirst Corporation parking lot and the employee parking lot of Schwann's, if they lined up, then it'd be easy to back up into one parking lot or the other. Is that not correct?
Sure. We typically don't like to use private property to turn fire apparatus around. That's just typical. That's why our city codes require that we have a cul-de-sac at the end, something that we maintain, because we have a more difficult time to make sure that, say, UniFirst parking lot starts going downhill. We may not have the facility or the ability to get them to correct that. So if it's a city street that it's an issue for us, we can get them to fix that. And
So even what we're indicating is even in situations where we do have a couple in the community where we have hammerhead turnarounds instead of a full circle, that the hammerhead is located in the city right away and is part of the public street that we maintain. And so I think what you're saying, Mr. Baff, is if this driveway was exactly opposite, it would almost be like a hammerhead configuration.
Exactly.
But as Mr. Long pointed out, the flip side of that is that we don't have any control over how those are maintained or if they're maintained. But that is the primary thing that we were looking at, and one of the things that we wanted, that we're, now that we have the site plan, that we've had some discussions with Mr. Long about, is that this parking lot itself is essentially an extension of the dead end, because there's only this one way in. And so one alternative for emergency vehicle circulation would be if there was an outlet over here, then that would allow emergency vehicles to circulate, and they wouldn't have to be in a situation of turning around or backing out.
So that would entail putting in another road off of that parking lot off the end.
It would entail modifying the parking lot design so that there was an outlet that tied back to Arnold. So again, John, if you could go back to the upper site plan. So this is the full building here. This is Arnold Avenue down here by the airport terminal. It comes around here, and it's an odd situation, but the airport authority is going to be retaining this lot and this lot, but this lot will become part of the campus and part of the ownership. So potentially there would be the ability to construct an outlet road over here. And so
That would be a private access road, correct?
it would be a parking lot access road, yes. So you'd have a situation where just this portion of Jumper from here to here would be a public street. It would basically terminate into this parking lot instead of having a turnaround. But to us, the alternative of having a turnaround here would be to have circulation here. So if a vehicle could circulate, then it wouldn't need. And what's not clear, and we do have a representative of the applicant here, we don't know if this is gated or restricted, or if there's full access into this lot or not, and that's something that the applicant's representative could share with us. But we, since the one of the public safety purposes of having the cul-de-sac turnaround is there are often cases when emergency vehicles get called out and they get another call and they have to go respond to that, and we don't want to be in a situation where they're stuck or having to do a backup maneuver to get back out and either take somebody to the hospital or to respond to another call.
And that's the other kind of concern that we have with this one-way in design into this parking lot. If we happen to get there at a time when a shift is getting ready to exchange, now we run it, and we talked about, what, 250 jobs out here? New.
Potentially, yeah.
So now 250 vehicles coming into that parking lot at shift exchange with us trying to do what we do, and we're going to, I mean, a fire truck's 8 foot wide, so we're going to block a majority of the one lane, so it could be a challenge. Whereas if we had a spot where we could, if there was a cul-de-sac at the end of that, we could pull out of the way so people could get by us, or if there was an exit, we could move the truck so that it wasn't in the way.
So perfect world solution, your choice would be the 96-foot cul-de-sac?
Yeah, that would be
Okay.
our preference, but, yep.
I wonder which solution is more cost-effective. I guess that would be a
And
question for the applicant.
I will tell you that, so we we received these drawings 10 days ago to do a plan review of this. And in part of my plan review notes sent back to the engineering firm is that, you know, they're going to have to do something for us turnaround wise. As I said, on the east side, Scanlon goes up in there a ways, and then there's a fire hydrant about 80 feet from the north end of the building that we could actually get there, but they're going to have to put signs around that area that says no parking fire lane so we can have access to get turned around. It's in the same situation, so.
Yeah, and I wanted to emphasize that it's not necessarily that making Jumper Road completely private addresses the turnaround issue. It's just that if it's entirely private, then the Planning Commission is not having to address it through the subdivision regulations because it won't be a street anymore. But as long as any portion of Jumper Road is a public street and it's terminating, it's supposed to terminate in a cul-de-sac. And maybe if you could go back to the aerial photo again, please, John, we can see what Troy's talking about in terms of Scanlon. So if you can find the aerial photo and scroll a little farther north. So this right here is Scanlon today. I don't know if you can get the aerial photo aspect
Just
to come
zoom
on.
in just
If
a
you
little
zoom
bit,
in
John.
a little bit, it should
There you
come
go.
on. So what Mr. Long's talking about again is that there's a proposed building that's going down through here, and the proposed parking lot is going to be in this location. The proposed building is going to be in this location, and then this will no longer be a public street. It'll be vacated as a public street, and we're talking about the same point, being that if you have fire apparatus coming up here to a hydrant, there has to be a place for the fire apparatus to turn around and get back out, which is present today with this cul-de-sac turnaround, but that's being eliminated as far as right-of-way, but still the question of fire department access and turnaround is still an issue. So from our staff perspective, it's either if you don't have a turnaround on Jumper Road, then you really need to have the parking lot provide circulation. And so the variation from the cul-de-sac doesn't really work from staff standpoint unless there's an ability to come in and go back out through circulation. So with that, we would want to address any commissioner questions of Mr. Long or staff, and then we'd want to hear from a representative of the applicant.
My question is, as far as having the cul-de-sac turnaround, if you were to pull the fire apparatus into the parking lot, you'd still have to circulate around the parking lot to get back out to that.
That's why we really wouldn't want to pull into the parking lot. That's why the turnaround is preferred.
Okay.
And you said the fire truck is how wide? 8 feet?
8 feet.
So even if you get in there, like you said, if they're coming in and out shift change, you're going to be blocking that whole thing. And if somebody has, again, if you have a 1-ton crew cab truck with a long bed on it, you're sticking out into that drive area.
Yes, you are. And that's why we struggle with using parking lots as any kind of drive aisle for us, because you do run into those situations. I don't know how many of you have been out to Walmart and seen how people park, especially if they're in a hurry late for a shift. They may cover 4 spots, you know. Unfortunately, that's what we deal with on a daily basis.
It seems like parking lots are getting a little tighter, and our propensity for buying SUVs and full-size trucks, which I'm guilty of as well.
Yeah,
That's a bad combination.
very
First
much so.
responders.
John, could you go back to that highlighted site plan again? The one that shows the vacated right-of-way? Okay, well, as you can see, this line right here is the north line of the right-of-way, and this right here is the turnaround. And the primary obstacle seems to be right here, and I'm assuming that's the north line of the building. So I guess we'd have to, it's difficult to see, but it appears that the traveled path for jumper is maybe running right up to the next to this building. So I think one question is whether this building could be shifted south at all. The other thing would be whether the existing road could be adjusted northward at all. But as I understand your comments, Troy, your preference would be if this, since it's already there, could be retained, and that would still be available as a means to get back out. Leaving it in its present configuration would be the preferred alternative if there was not a new turnaround constructed here, correct?
Yeah, I mean, the problem with the existing one that's there currently is that we lose about a third of it with the design of that new building. So we'd almost need to move that back to the west and try to get us that full 96-foot diameter turnaround.
You're talking about
Yeah,
somewhere
in
here.
there somewhere.
So we can do some measuring in there, but we've already have this written consent of UniFirst to be part of the plat. Then the question would be whether they would support moving this from here to something in this location here. So perhaps we'll have to do some more measuring in that regard, but the first question that's before the commission would be whether you would be supportive of granting a variation where there would be no cul-de-sac turnaround at all, and that would be your first action item. But we want to have an opportunity to hear from the applicant's representative. But the preferred plan that was presented to staff to bring forward to you today is this configuration right here, which has no turnaround presently built into it. So that's the one that we have to respond to at this time. So if there are no further questions of staff, it might be useful to hear from a representative of the applicant as to what their design considerations and preferences are.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. So just to just to thank the Salina Fire Department. We want to take in consideration everything they give us because, as you said, you're out at our place. You're critically important as part of the first responders and how we handle emergencies and stuff like that. So we take their considerations very seriously.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second. Just as
sure.
a formality, I
Oh,
need
I'm
to get
sorry.
your name, your
Chris
full name.
Wiseman. I'm the Senior Director of Manufacturing out at the Salina campus.
Thank you very much.
Sorry about that.
You're fine.
Okay. So the only thing I would have to add at this point is just a comment on the size of the parking lot. So I'm not sure that this does it justice. This parking lot's actually designed for a full 53-foot tractor to be able to turn around and navigate. And those are they're right around 74 foot long when you have the tractor on front plus the 53-foot trailer. So in respect to a 38-foot fire truck and when you talk about parking lots, because certainly we have some of the same parking issues that Walmart and everybody else has in full-size trucks with extended cabs and extended beds. Those are certainly challenges, but I just wanted to make that comment on the size of this parking lot. It is quite large. So this is not a small parking lot. It's actually designed for 350 spaces. So it is oversized for the total number of folks in the facility.
So when this is shown as a 30-foot dimension, I believe, this roadway coming in. So what are these typical?
I don't have the
Aisle
exact
widths.
dimensions that they designed this as. I do know it's approximately 140 foot, if not larger, the total width of the lot. Now that goes from side to side, and obviously you lose some of that width when you're talking about parking spots taking up the edge rows. So. And it wasn't
Yeah, this
included in
here
the
says
drawings I got, so-
194 across it, right?
Yeah.
Turning radius would be another, you're gonna have a tighter turning radius with a semi and a trailer.
Than you would with your 38 footer. Okay.
Than you would with ours.
Okay.
I think our minimum turning radius is 60 foot.
Okay. So, I don't know if the design team took that into effect when they designed the parking lot either. So that will be a question that we can kick back to the design team as well.
Yeah, Long, could you say that into the microphone?
So that a tractor trailer turn radius is going to be able to be tighter than one 38-foot vehicle because the tractor bends and the trailer can kind of follow, whereas a solid 38 feet trying to go around a corner takes a little bit more space than that tractor trailer would, but I mean, they're relatively close, so.
Thank you. I do have a question. So if you were presented with the option of either the 96-foot diameter cul-de-sac versus another roadway or means of getting out of that parking lot, what would be more cost-effective? Just, I mean, I understand you'd have to get bids and things, but
Yeah, I think that
Ballpark.
would, for us, that'd really have to go back to the design team because a 96-foot turn radius here is going to shift pretty significantly some of the designs. And I don't know about getting an exit back over the stormwater box culvert that is built in there. So there would be some engineering that would have to go along to ensure that we could adequately cross over that stormwater culvert without caving it in and causing further damage and then eventually not having a roadway out. So for me, I think that would have to go back to the design team. Those folks are the experts at those kinds of calculations and cost analysis.
I understand.
Just as a matter of information, just based on the 194-foot width, we're coming up with driving aisles that are in the 24 to 25-foot range width-wise, and that's pretty standard for a commercial parking lot. So we wouldn't consider 24-foot drive aisles to be over designed because our minimum requirement for 90-degree parking is 24-foot aisle. So
Okay.
I would not, based on that, I wouldn't describe the aisles as oversized. But I'll let Mr. Long react to that information, but a 24-foot driving aisle is what you'd see in a lot of commercial, say a Dillon store or something like that. A 24-foot aisle is pretty common.
So if the parking lanes were at an angle, you could increase that driving width considerably then, couldn't you?
Again, my background is not design and engineering, so I think for those kinds of questions, it would need to go back to the engineering team. Those folks are the ones that helped put this in place in the first place, so they could help alleviate some of the concerns that Mr. Long has, along with the rest of the Salina Fire Department, because we certainly want to take those into consideration.
Because looking at this parking lot, the way it's laid out right now with the parking stalls and everything, it doesn't look like much of a turnaround place in there at all. It goes
Yeah.
all the way to the end.
I think the concern for Mr. Long and my experience with the fire department is if they get another call or they're responding, they're going to move fairly rapidly, and what they don't want is if this is a bare minimum 24 feet, they don't want to have such as an extra long parked vehicle, or they want to know what the clear path would be. This is 30 feet wide, this seems to be 24 in here, and if they don't feel comfortable that the 24 feet might not be obstructed in some places, there may be some, that's why they don't, in an ideal situation, want to use the parking lots where there's parked vehicles for circulation. But to have that work, the circulation down here, this aisle has to be sufficient width, not necessarily for turning around, but just to do that maneuver, because it's one thing to navigate a parking lot that's empty, it's another thing to navigate a parking lot that's full of parked cars. So that's the concern. I guess one thing, because there's a lot of moving parts to this project in terms of building permit plans and building permit review and site plans and things like that. One of the things that the disadvantage we had is that we couldn't at the August 4th meeting, we couldn't bring you any information about a site plan and design plans and all that because we didn't have an announced project. But one thing we thought about before this meeting, and with our COVID-19 response, we set ourselves to having one meeting per month. But one option that we do have is that we could postpone consideration of this question on the variation to allow ourselves and the fire department to work with SFC's global supply chains design team to maybe flesh out some of these options to get additional information about whether it's feasible to make the parking lot circulate, or what the impact would be of constructing a circular turnaround
Or we could just,
to the west of the building.
or we could just deny it. It'd be the same thing, isn't that correct?
Well, if you denied the variation, that means that they would either have to live with the existing cul-de-sac or construct a new one. Yes.
Construct a new what?
They would either have to leave the road as is, and this would be the turnaround, or without the variation, they would have to come up with a design here. If you were to deny the variation, then that would take off the table the option for circulating the parking lot and coming back out there. So that's just the option, is that if there was any interest in considering the variation with the ability to have a second outlet here, then One option would be to consider scheduling a special meeting on the 15th and looking at that option being fleshed out. That's one option, or the other option is to take action on the variation request today, and if the variation is not approved, then the options, there would only be two options. One would be to leave it as it is here, or to relocate it to a location farther west.
Are you in a hurry?
Well, there are so we're always in a hurry, right? There are permitting aspects to the overall project that would be impacted to wait a month. So I think at least from our perspective, and obviously we want to be respectful of everybody's time, your time, the Salina Fire Department's time, we want to respect that. But from our perspective, I think we could have a solution in conjunction with Salina Fire Department, working with the design team, I think by the 15th. I don't think that's unreasonable from my perspective.
Sounds reasonable to me. I mean, it's everybody else's.
I'll make that motion.
I would second it.
So just for
Okay, we have-
clarification, it's a motion to postpone.
Yeah, postpone the consideration of the proposal replat to specified future meeting date, which would be September 15th, is 2 weeks from today.
So essentially, you'd be agreeing to hold a special meeting on the 15th. You normally, in normal times, would have had a meeting there, but with the COVID-19, we went to once a month, but that date's available. So the motion is to postpone consideration to a special meeting on September 15th and to allow staff to work with their design team to come back with alternatives for you.
Staff and fire department.
Yes.
Yep.
So we had a motion and a second over here?
Correct.
Okay. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
You've just agreed to have a special meeting, and we recognized, because there are tight timelines associated with this project and a lot of moving parts, so waiting until October would not have been workable for this, but these are questions that need to be answered for the building permit plan review anyway, so we're actually addressing two things at one time. We're looking at the plat and we're looking at building permit review, and those things can be combined.
We're looking at 4 o'clock then?
Yeah, regular, none of this 4:30 stuff. It'd be 4 o'clock, so. We don't want to throw anybody off with those 4:30 times.
All right. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you.
Appreciate your time.
And we do thank Mr. Long for attending today and help shed some light on the way the fire department looks at these things.
Sounds good, thanks.
Thank you, Troy.
You bet.
Thanks again.
We do have another item for you on your agenda, and that's under item 3.2. And we usually use the first or second meeting in September to be your annual meeting, and it's a time for election of new officers and nomination of representatives. So we've spelled out for you who's the new 7 members are, and Mona Eisenhower's, Barb Goods, Joan Jackson's, and Scott Lang's terms ended at the end of August, and their terms either expired or they did not seek reappointment. So we have Joe Hay and Carla Waters as new members, and Derek Bernhardt was appointed to a new 3-year term after filling out Owen Freiberger's term in 2020. So as we noted, there's 2 vacancies for members who would reside outside the city limits, and we're soliciting expression of interest for those. But our first item of business is the election of a chair and vice chair. And Mr. Linkowitz currently serves as chair, and he has served 1 term, is eligible for another term. And so, with the exception of the 2 new appointees, all current members of the commission are eligible for the position of chair. And then Barb Good served as the vice chair, and she's no longer on the commission. And again, with the exception of the new appointees, all members are eligible for the position of vice chair. So I think we would start out by accepting nominations to fill the position of chair for the upcoming year.
I nominate Greg Lakewitz.
Second. If you want so.
I'll do it again, sure.
I nominate John Olson for vice chair.
Before we nominate someone, then we,
Okay.
is there any further nominations for the position of chair? If not, all those in favor of Mr. Linkowitz serving as chair another year, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that takes care of chair, and then we've had a name placed in nomination for vice chair, and that's John Olson.
Yeah.
And are there any further nominations, or someone want to move that? Was that motion seconded?
I second
Okay.
that.
And are there any further motions or nominations? If not, I will call for a vote on the position of vice chair. All those in favor of John Olson serving as vice chair, please say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. So we have a new chair and a vice chair. And then these positions, as we explained in the study session, there is a member of the Planning Commission that serves on the Board of Zoning Appeals, and the purpose, again, and also on the Heritage Commission. And the idea is so there can be some cross-pollination of ideas, and so that boards are know what each other's working on and issues that are going on. So we have John Olson, who's currently serving as the commission's representative on the Board of Zoning Appeals. And the Board of Zoning Appeals meets once a month on the third Thursday of each month and has 7 members, one of whom is a Planning Commission rep. So we can either nominate, or generally we have just sought volunteers if anyone wanted to come forward to volunteer to serve on the Board of Zoning Appeals or give consideration to that. They could put.
You want to continue, John?
Yeah, I would continue on that one. It doesn't meet that often.
Especially this year, but
Yeah.
that's going to change, so.
I nominate John Olson.
Second.
Well, if Mr. Olson agrees voluntarily to serve, then I don't think we need to vote on that if he's agreed to serve in that capacity. And then Mr. Baffa has served as the Planning Commission's representative on the Heritage Commission in the past, and he is eligible for another term. Anybody currently on the Planning Commission is eligible to serve as the Heritage Commission representative if they're interested. So we'll start out seeing if there's volunteers.
I would volunteer.
I enjoy it.
If Commissioner Baffwood is not interested, I mean, if he's interested, I'm more than happy to have him continue representing us.
Thank you.
So if Mr. Baffa is willing to continue in that role, it's nice to have Mr. Gilmore as a backup. Both, Mr. Gilmore previously served on the Heritage Commission before being on the Planning Commission, so he's had that exposure. But if Mr. Baffa is just for the benefit of Mr. Olson and for Mr. Baffa, what those nominations from the Planning Commission they'll be ratified by the mayor, and so the mayor appointed you to the Planning Commission. The mayor will appoint you to be the representative on those 2 boards, and we will move those names forward, and then we will keep you informed. I know the next Board of Zoning Appeals meeting is the 17th of September, and they will meet on that date. And John, you're thinking the 23rd of September? Yes. So the Heritage Commission will So well, again, all of our boards are meeting in September. All of our boards will have an orientation and training. So we'll have the same format where we'll do a study session and then have a regular meeting for the Board of Zoning Appeals and study session and regular meeting for the Heritage Commission, which will be on the 23rd, and the Board of Zoning Appeals on Thursday, the 17th. And you have agreed to hold a special meeting the 15th. Before we adjourn, I just wanted to run a question by the commission. One of the things that we have not done this year, and Mr. Bernhardt may be observing that himself, but the city has not done a stellar job with various layoffs and being short-staffed and no summer help. A lot of our landscape medians and things like that have not been maintained to the standard that we would like. So as a result of that, we have not been doing much active enforcement of anything in regards to private landscaping or maintaining or failure to maintain. So traditionally in October of each year, which is National Planning Month, the Planning Commission has conducted a landscape awards program. We're thinking just because of all the unusual things, and it's been a challenge for everybody to maintain what they have, that maybe foregoing that this year because it's just kind of a different year, and we've been short-staffed ourselves and haven't really gone out and looked at prospects or projects, but we'll do what you think you'd prefer to do. If you think there's some recent projects that you've seen that are worthy of recognition, then we would go ahead and do that and kind of bring those to our attention. But if we were to do that, we would do it at your October meeting. And quite frankly, we haven't given it much thought. We're not doing much advanced planning or thinking ahead, but we just wanted to get your thoughts on whether, one, you wanted to do landscaping awards this year, and secondly, if you got some ideas of projects you've driven by or observed that you think are worthy of recognition. So
I know COVID has turned this world upside down. The city upside down. I think.
I would pass this year.
I would say we forego it this year and pick it up next year.
yeah, as our one of the things is that it said the city hasn't done a great job on the things that they've done, and so as a result of that, we're not, if people have dead trees or things that are uncut or things like that, we're not bothering people about that this year. There's more important things, and so if you would be willing to forego this year, and we'll regroup and look at things next year, but we didn't want to decide that ourselves. We wanted to run it by you, but just letting you know, we haven't really given it much thought or preparation, but we would want you to have the final decision. So
We need to make a motion on that.
if you just have a consensus that you want to try again next year, that's what we'll do.
Seems reasonable to tap out on that.
Yeah,
So.
and I don't know what kind of challenges Mr. Bernhardt's having. It seems like every contractor I know in town is behind on
Oh, yeah.
on things.
No, it makes sense. I think all of us in the industry have been in the same boat, so.
So I think that's all the business that we have for you. We want to welcome Carla and Joe, and if things have come into your mind based on what's happened today or the study session, you want to follow up with questions to staff, we're certainly available to answer questions and fill in blanks if all we've done is confuse you. So, but I think that's the business we have for you tonight.
Okay, guess we need a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second. Been moved and seconded. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Adjourned.